Hello, everybody, and once again, welcome to Gulfstream today. Don't adjust your TV monitors. Track announcer Pete Aiello joined by Acacia Courtney. We're subbing for Ron Nicoletti here this afternoon, so I'll take you the rest of the way throughout the program. We have 10 races to get to here this afternoon. A carryover once again in today's Rainbow Six, a fast main track and a firm turf course, and it's Friday, so that can only mean one thing.
Well, before we talk about today, we want to give you a quick reminder that tomorrow we have an early post time of 12:45, so make sure that you adjust your calendars and you're not late for tomorrow. We normally start at 1:15, 12:45 tomorrow for the 12 races, but as you said, Friday can only mean one thing. It is Beat the Expert Day. So hopefully you have all of your picks in. My picks are in already. You have until post time, about 58 minutes. Go over to our website, gulfstreampark.com, facebook.com/gulfstreampark, or the Twitter page. And don't forget to use hashtag Beat the Expert to let us know that you're playing. If you pick more winners than me, you'll have the chance to win one of those great polo shirts plus the bragging rights.
Degree of difficulty, a little bit difficult here today if you're trying to get after Acacia, as we're working with some shorter fields early in the program, which should result in a lot of similar opinions here this afternoon. So it'll come down to one or two races, I would imagine, in the Beat the Expert contest here today. 10 races on the card. We're 58 minutes from first race post time. We have a variety of wagering options for you here this afternoon, including the 50-cent early pick 5, which begins in race 1, as does the $1 rolling super high 5. Rolling super high 5, no carryover here today as we've had the last couple days. 50-cent early pick 5 in the first of the day, comprising races 1 through 5. The Rainbow Six this afternoon will get underway in race number 5 with the 10-race format. You're playing for a carryover of $79,642. Just a 20-cent investment in the Rainbow Six, close to $80,000 already in that carryover pool. And then, of course, the late pick 5, which begins in race number 6 here this afternoon. Degree of difficulty in the late pick 5 far higher than the early pick 5. Look for that to be the big payoff of the afternoon.
Yeah, we're going to give you a look at all of my tickets for those wagering options, and I agree with you, later on a little bit tougher, so we'll see if I can keep my pick 5 streak going, and we'll give you a look at my Rainbow Six as well, but it should be a fun one, huh, Pete?
I think so. There's definitely some horses to talk about here this afternoon, and you'll have the opportunity to try to beat some pretty heavy favorites early in the day. We'll start it off on the turf at 1 mile. Maiden claimers in at the $40,000 price tag. Scratch number 2, Miss Slick. So a field of 7 to start the proceedings this afternoon, and the top play in this race from you, Acacia, is?
Well, the top play is going to be the number 4, but want to give you a peek at my early pick 5 ticket before we dive into here. I used 3 horses in here with 4, 7, 8. I did find a single that's going to be in the last race today. That's going to be long distance. The number 1 horse there, $48 for me. I thought there were a couple options to single. You could have singled Tetradram, the 8 in race number 4 as well. So definitely a couple options for a single earlier in the day, but I agree with Pete trying to beat some of those favorites. So $48 for me here to start off. And number 4, Miss Dude, is going to be my top selection, who's dropping from maiden special weight to maiden claiming company today. Ran against state-bred fillies last time out. That was in March. It was about 4 months ago. Had 4 months prior to that. So I think a lot of question marks in this opening race. But this one, I think, just looks to be the most primed out of the field to get done today.
Yeah, another horse that I'm sure you have something good to say about, in fact, is your second selection, number 8, Borba Allah. Borba Allah appears to be the controlling speed in here. She controlled the lead of the pace last time out and almost held on for the victory. Here this afternoon, I think she faces a cast that's similar to her last assignment, but she'll have a clear and easy lead, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, she will. I think that the number 7, Sassy Astray, right next to her might show a little bit more speed now that she's getting blinkers for the first time, but I definitely agree that if she can get loose on the lead, that's talking about the number 8, Borba Allah, which I'm glad that you're here because I was wondering how to pronounce that. So leave it to a track announcer to know the right pronunciation. But she got outkicked late last time out, though she was only beaten by 1 length. So hopefully she's able to maintain that lead and hold on there for the check. And as I mentioned, the number 7, Sassy Astray, who's adding blinkers, is going to round out my top 3.
Well, I want to give you a 4th play if you're investing in the early pick 4. Number 1, Miso Blue. Today's useless trivia is number 1, Miso Blue, is out of a mare named Dat You Miss Blue, who was a very, very nice campaigner in New York. She was a New York bred superstar But that's not the useless trivia. The useless trivia is she was trained by an employee of Gulfstream Park, the one and only Billy Badgett.
Well, there you go. And this was definitely an interesting one for me, too. I think that I'm going to watch one with her today, but definitely one that I want to look at next time. And Ronnie Warner is the trainer, has a lot of nice young horses coming over from Arundel Farm, but a lot of them seem to need a race or two to get started, but certainly one to keep an eye on moving forward.
Well, we kick it off on turf, and then we switch to the main track for today's second race. The second race is at 7 furlongs over the main track. Scratch the number 2. It's High Time. Leaves us with a field of 5 in this race. And even though it's only a field of 5, I think all 5 of them merit some consideration. Who did you settle on top here?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And even with the scratch of the 2, It's High Time, that was one that could have been considered as well. So I landed on the number 3, Heartbreaker Girl, from the Juan Rodriguez barn, and won last time out against $30,000 claimers. Want to give you a stat on trainer Juan A. Rodriguez in the past 5 years with horses that won last time out. 6 for 57, about 11% winning back-to-back, 30% of the time in the money, but still a good ROI, a positive ROI of 251. And this one, at the start of her career, they thought enough to put her in the Grade 2 Adirondack back in August of 2015 at Saratoga. She's been keeping some decent form then, especially the last 2 races have been strong. I think this level is good for her.
Yeah, and she beat an odds-on favorite last time out in our Kinsley doll who had no excuses. So it was a great effort from Heartbreaker Girl. She certainly appears one of the main contenders in this race. Another horse out wide, Recent Transactions. You like long distance later on the program, so it's good that you're using Recent Transactions because she beat long distance when she broke her maiden.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit of homework for you to keep an eye on. 2 back. Recent Transactions had a nice win at the 7 furlong, stretched out to a mile last time out. Was gaining last time and missed just by a neck, so I think cutting back a bit to the 7 furlongs. She's from the Jose Pinchin barn. He scratched his other entrant, the 2, It's High Time, and I think that Recent Transactions is primed pretty well in this spot.
Use the number 1 horse, Bajema, in third here. She'll be a victim of the pace here this afternoon, but her race 2 back is just plenty good enough to win this race. She faced a little bit tougher last time out, including a horse who came back to beat allowance horses in Metamu.
Yeah, and I think that the number 4, Artie's Bourbon Girl, will definitely be the speed here in this race. Sure to go out to the front, so it might set up for someone like the one from the Steve Glasaris barn. Tyler Gaffleon going to be in the saddle.
Yeah, number 4, Artie's Bourbon Girl, gets a rider switch here this afternoon to apprentice jockey Carlos Hernandez. He'll have to ration her speed a little bit better than was done last time out. We talked about 4 of the 5. We might as well give some airtime to the number 5, Did Not Mean It. She was a nice winner 2 back. She was the morning line favorite last time out. She lost to Heartbreaker Girl while not having any excuses. However, it's the bounce rebound angle there as she didn't run very well last time out. The price will be better here today.
Yeah, I agree. And she's one that I put on my early pick 5 ticket as well, because if you're going on the bounce rebounds angle, she's due for a good one today.
Absolutely. The third race of the afternoon, maiden special weight variety at 6 furlongs over the fast main track. A field of 5 here. The horse with the proven resume is number 1. She's incredible, but there's 3 first-time starters in here, including a pair from the barn of Ralph Nix. And number 4, Tiz Shopping, fits that bill. She's your top play.
She's the one that I went with on top. Taking a little bit of a gamble here. You mentioned that last time in the 5-horse field, all 5 horses could figure. Here's another example of exactly that. Ralph Nix has the 2 outside starters, the 4, Tiz Shopping, and the 5, Backsplash. But I want to give you a stat on trainer Ralph Nix in the past 5 years with first-time starters in maiden special weight. So this applies to both the 4 and the 5. 22 for 111, pretty big sample size, about 20%, getting his first-time starters ready for maiden special weight 45% of the time in the money. $1.36 ROI. You imagine in maiden special weights especially with younger horses, Ralph Nix is going to be pretty well bet. But I settled on the number 4, Tiz Shopping, who has a very solid, consistent work tab, especially the most recent one, July 10th. Went 3 furlongs in 36-3. This one's a $120,000 4-year-old filly by Tiz Now.
Yeah, she's a 4-year-old filly. Her stablemate outside, and Backsplash is a 3-year-old. That's .1 for Tiz Shopping. .2, I think, is the rider. Gaffleon's the go-to rider, so jockey agent Walter Blum had a choice here. He picked the 4 over the 5.
Yeah, a little something else to take into consideration. I put the number 2, Little Alexandra, in second. This one from the Carlo Vaccarezza barn. Been working nicely over at Palmettos. Moved off of the turf last time out, and that was off of about a 5-month layoff. It wasn't the most exciting of performances, beating about 6.5 lengths to be fourth. But as I said, that was her first start on the main track, and it was her first start after about 5 months, and I think that she's really eligible to improve off of that.
Certainly, and I think the number 1 horse in here, she's incredible. If the morning line holds and she goes favored, she's had enough opportunities, given that there is some other depth in this race. Maybe she's a horse to try to beat.
Yeah, I thought that she was the one to beat, second in her last 2, and she's been turf, dirt, maiden special weight, maiden claiming, just all over the place in 8 different starts trying to find a spot. So I'm trying to beat her with a first-time starter, but we'll see how that plays out.
We'll turn our attention now to race number 4 on the program. 7.5 furlongs over the turf course. Scratch the 1, 2, 4, 7, and 10. 11 at this point remains in the race, just in case we get one of those famous South Florida sun showers in the afternoon. Heavily favored on the morning line, even more so now with the scratches. A horse going for 4 in a row. First off the claim for trainer Ramon Moya. It's all about Tetradram in race 4.
Well, this one is sticking with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it angle. 7.5 furlongs on the turf, sits just off the pace, was the odds-on favorite last time out and delivered for that 3rd consecutive victory. Won by 2.5 lengths with Eddie Castro. So getting a jockey change, Sammy Camacho is going to be in the saddle today, but I think that this horse is good enough, especially in this field. Yes, you're going to have to take what's sure to be a very short price on him, but I think that he's certainly primed to get another one.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, Tetradram is versatile enough where he can sit a trip. The short field is not going to compromise him from that perspective. He has enough tactical speed to stay close. He showed that last time. Ramon Moya, first time into his barn, there's nothing wrong with that angle either. So all indications are Tetradram's the one to beat. However, in looking at your early pick 5 ticket, you're going to try to beat Tetradram here. The 9 horse Dominate. I think that tactically he has an advantage over Tetradram.
Definitely. And I think that Dominate is just waiting for that moment where he can beat Tetradram. He's been second to him in the last 2 starts. After cutting back in distance from 1 1/16 to 7.5, those have been his last 3 starts. He won the first one, won by a neck, sitting just behind the pace. Then the last 2, as I mentioned, second to Tetradram. So he's got a little bit of seconditis. It's been with this one horse. And I think that you're right that tactically he might be able to set up a little bit better today. Jesus Rios is going to be in the saddle once again. This one from the Terry Pompey barn. And I think if anybody here is going to be able to beat Tetradram, it would be this one.
I think you're right about that. We're going to take a brief timeout. We'll be back with a preview of today's Rainbow Six right after this.
Hey everyone, I'm Acacia Courtney, and I want to tell you about a fun contest that we have going on. It's called Beat the Expert. Every Friday, if you're able to pick more winners than me or my co-host Ron Nicoletti, then you will have the chance to win a free polo shirt that says that you beat the expert. Go to facebook.com/GulfstreamPark to enter and use hashtag #BeatTheExpert to let us know that you're playing. Bring it on.
Back now for a preview of race number 5 today with the 10-race format. The 5th race does start the Rainbow Six here today. You're playing for a carryover of close to $80,000, and the 5th race is at 7 furlongs over the main track. Scratch number 7, Belle Mystique. It's a field of 8 maiden claimers of the $10,000 variety. Let's take a look at Acacia Courtney's Rainbow Six ticket. You singled long distance in the early pick 5. However, you're going to get some coverage here with Manana as well.
Yes, I'm going to cover myself in the first leg here today. Still kept it affordable. $48 for my Rainbow Six. Wasn't able to find a single. You mentioned this earlier, and I totally agree that I think the second half of the card is going to be a little bit tougher here to settle in. So just to be safe, I added Manana, the number 8 in here, I think especially with the scratch. But long distance, definitely the one to beat. 8 to 5 on the morning line. You see race number 7 is where I actually went the deepest, a very wide open maiden special weight with some really strong, I think, contenders in that one, and then 2 deep in the rest of the races today.
Well, the 5th race is a maiden claiming event, and as always with the maiden 10 events, there are usually horses that can rise to the occasion. Long distance appears to be one of those horses. She took a big drop in class last time out, but that drop in class was mitigated by the fact that she took on the boys, and not only that, she lost to Express Jet, who was an odds-on winner that afternoon and expected to do so. So here this afternoon, this is her first start as the headliner at this level.
Yeah, and I think that this is where she's really going to be able to prove herself and back up her performance last time. You look at the comments and you see beaten by 7 3/4 lengths and best of the rest. But as you mentioned, Express Jet was the odds-on favorite, was a runaway winner, won by 5.5 that day, pulled away from the rest of the field. And I thought that long distance performed very solidly. She tried the turf 2 back, and that was a no-go. But her start, even against $25,000 maidens, was the second. She was beaten only by a length. So I think she's really primed here today to get that maiden victory.
Yeah, long distance is a horse I did not envision early in her career would even need to drop to the $10,000 level to win, because when she ran against Recent Transactions, she was just really, really sharp that afternoon. Even in her debut run, she didn't run very badly at all. I think from the rail here, however, I would hope that Miguel Vasquez is offensive-minded. If she secures the lead on the inside, that might be all they wrote.
Yeah, and it's going to be a catch me if you can, if you will there. I also used the number 8, Manana, as we mentioned, coming back in just 8 days, and didn't really gain it all last time. Was kind of pulled up a bit, and I think just didn't really perform there. I think you put a line through that race, and looking through the rest of the field, this is a horse that's just been waiting for that spot, waiting for that trip.
Number 3, Scorpion Dancer, is a horse you use third in the race. I think that's a wise move. Horacio Barberon horses do improve. He kind of races them fit. She ran very well in her second start. That was also her Gulfstream debut last time.
Beaten only by 4 lengths at 7 furlongs, so I'm agreeing with you, trying to get her to improve a bit.
We'll turn our attention now to race number 6, the first leg of the 50-cent late pick 5. And this is where the waters get quite a bit deeper on the Friday program. We have a field of 9 on turf at 1 mile. There are no changes in this race, and of the 9, I think there's 9 of them that have a chance in here. No throwouts from my standpoint. How did you see race number 6?
Well, we'll give you a look at my late pick 5 ticket, and you see I wasn't able to find a single in the late pick 5 either. I went 2, 3, 4 here in this race, $36 because I did go too deep in the rest. As I said, wasn't able to single in on one horse, but I still tried to keep it affordable and pare it down. My late pick 5 ticket came in yesterday, so hopefully keep that momentum going because this is a pretty tough sequence.
Yeah, it is. And race number 6 on the card is at 1 mile, as we mentioned. There's some horses in here that are both trying to maintain their win streaks. Number 2, Paparie, is going for 3 in a row, as is number 3, Defying Gravity. Both of them will be coming from a little bit off the speed. I expect the one, Belladini, will be forwardly placed. And if the pace does develop up front, there's horses like those two that are the key contenders. They're your top 2.
Yeah, and Defying Gravity is actually 6-1 on the morning line, so I'm trying to beat the favorites here in this race. But I think that this horse, cutting back now to the mile distance, stepping up a little bit from $10,000 claiming level to the $16,000 level. But based off those past 2 performances, I think he's certainly up to the task. 2 back, 1 is the odds-on favorite by 3 lengths, 1 by 4 last time out at the mile and a 16th. Has 5 wins at this mile distance, so working nicely coming in. Cornelio Velasquez in the saddle, Jose Pinchin the trainer.
Paparie makes her first start for trainer Safi Joseph Jr. She's been laid up since being claimed in April. That was off a non-winners to 3 victory. Waters get a bit tougher here this afternoon going into the open company, but she is sharp right now. Martine Ramirez has the call.
Yeah, she's looking for her 3rd in a row. As you mentioned, she hasn't raced since April, and I think it was against tougher, even though it was at this level. So she's had about 3 months off, a little bit less distance, but she's working really nicely for her return, and I think she could certainly put up a good run today.
It's always interesting in horse racing when horses are closers and they are victims of the pace. A horse that proves that she doesn't need that to be the case or doesn't want that to be the case is number 4, A Fleet Mary. She closed into a 51 2 half mile. She was dead last off of a 51 2 half mile and ran down the horses last time out. Interestingly, Sato goes aggressive here and drops her in class off the victory. She has a Misael Jaramillo in the iron, so I don't think the pace matters to A Fleet Mary. It's just whether she has her mind on business.
Yeah, and it's based off fitness and looking for that trip, and as you mentioned, she had to go 5 wide last time too, and she still managed to get the job done. I want to give you a stat on trainer Antonio Sano, though. With the past 5 years, horses coming off a layoff of 61 to 180 days, so that horse fits right in here. Her last start was on May 12th. 3 for 42, just 7% win. 10 for 42, just 24% in the money, and only a 60-cent ROI. So that's something to keep in mind. One of the things that couldn't put this horse on the top of my ticket, but you mentioned that drop in class, and I think that kind of mitigates a little bit of the stats that you're seeing there.
This is a career low for A Fleet Mary this afternoon, and she gets Jaramillo in the iron, so she's sure to attract her a considerable amount of wagering attention. Before we go, number 5 in this race, Oxidata, welcome to South Florida. Jockey Roberto Alvarado, who's up from from New Jersey, coming in for Peter Walder. Trip-wise, she should get a good trip here. She might be forgot about with a lot of these sharp horses.
Yeah, if you're looking for a price, 8-1 on the morning line, and I agree with you, that might be a little bit cool on the board to get a good price play in there.
Seventh race of the afternoon starts the 50-cent late pick 4 today, 5 furlongs the journey. These are Florida-bred, maiden special weight 2-year-olds. We do have a scratch here of number 5, Jax, a full field of 11. And as you saw in Acacia's pick 4, or pick 5 and Rainbow 6 ticket, no shortage of contenders in this race. I think this race has more questions than it does answers.
Definitely. So one of the horses that I ended up using, the one that I actually used on top, is going to be the number 7, Lago Lindo. And that's one with previous experience, had one race so far from the Ralph Nix barn. Want to go back and show this past race. This was on June 23rd, and this one, you see is number 7 there. You see at the start, just ends up drifting a bit. It was her first start. She cut off the number 6. She's going all around the field, not really sure where to go or what to do. And then we'll cut to the stretch. You see she was wide, and she was pretty game for third. The horses that she finished behind, though, the horse that was second in this race was a horse named Mia, who came back to win next time out impressively the other day. And the horse that won was Lyrica, who went on to be second in the Cassidy Stakes. So a bit of a key race coming out here. She's got the previous experience. You see there, she's the number 7, the gray. I thought a game place finish for third, and the one that I used on top.
Well, she's owned by the Red Oak Stable, who, for those of you who don't know, that's owned by John Brunetti, who owns Hialeah Park, who I have been affiliated with for a while. So I have a little more information on Lago Lindo. I was talking to the racing manager for Red Oak Stable, Rick Sacco, about this horse just a couple of days ago, and we both agreed that we thought that she'd get better as she got older and as the distances increased, but that doesn't mean she's not a key contender in this race. She tries 5 furlongs again today.
Yeah, she'll try and get to the winner's circle today. The other horse that I used is a first-time starter from the Stanley Gold Barn. That's the number 6, Yankee Perfection, who has a very impressive work tab coming into today. Most recently had a bullet on July 8th right here at Gulfstream, went 3 furlongs in 35 flat. And then I rounded it out with the number 2, Evamene.
We'll have to look that one up.
We're going to have to look that one up.
Forvo.com on the number 2 horse in race number 7.
It's always hard when you have first-time starters and you can't go back and watch a previous race, but this one's 12-1 on the morning line. 2-year-old filly by Ken Tharos, working nicely coming in. Angel Rodriguez, the trainer. And I thought out of the rest of the field, you mentioned there's a lot of question marks still in this race, and so I went with one that seemed to have the breeding. The barn is certainly not known for first-time starters, but based on that work tab.
Like to see Louis Castillo named on this horse as well. He's cagey with the 2-year-old, so good rider for a horse that may be a sneaky selection in race number 7. We'll go now to the 8th race on the program. 8th race is 5 furlongs over the turf, maiden special weights in this race. And number 1, Fortunaire, ran lights out in the debut. Could not have been more impressive when not winning. I think we're going to show the replay on that in a moment.
We are. This is my second choice horse, but I want to go back and show that race to start off because, as Pete mentioned, it was a pretty nightmarish trip for Fortunaire. She's the number 8 that day, so we're going to show the break and see how she broke pretty slowly. She's the gray there. Again, this was her first time racing. Tyler Gaffleone was going to be in the saddle. He's riding again today. And then you look, what an impressive performance here as she's coming around the stretch. She's 4-5 wide there, trying to keep it straight. She ended up finishing second by a neck behind Honest Pride, who looked to be the primed winner there today. But I thought it was a really good performance. She was really game in defeat that day, and as I said, just a nightmarish trip. So hopefully she's got to deal with the rail today, so we'll see if she's able to get by the number 2, Fabulous Devotion, who's cutting back in distance.
Well, the thing about this horse is that the question mark is, will she behave herself? Did she get something mentally out of that race? Physically, all she has to do is run back to her last effort, and she has a big chance. She made some mistakes in the debut. She can't afford to make those same mistakes here today.
Absolutely, and that was one of my concerns with her here. I ended up going with the number 2, Fabulous Devotion, on top from the Ralph Nix barn. You mentioned Tyler Gaffleone isn't normal first call rider for Ralph Nix. He's going to be on the number 1, Fortunaire, from the Cassie barn instead. But Fabulous Devotion, the number 2, as I said, cutting back in distance. Last start was a mile on the turf, but going back to the racetrack after about 5 months. Last ran in February to finish 6th. Had some late running there that day, but the last time that she ran at 5 furlongs on the turf was back in November at Gulfstream Park West. Finished a very good second that day.
Well, today is opening day of the 2016 summer season at Del Mar. A horse who Acacia likes on her ticket hasn't been seen since the fall season at Del Mar. Number 7, Vendita, from the trainer Patrick Biancone, whose resume doesn't need any introduction.
So this horse hasn't raced in 8 months, as Pete mentioned. Last ran on November 6th at Del Mar with some pretty disappointing performances, but a couple back, had to be steadied, finished behind a horse named Illuminant, who went on to win the Grade 1 Gamely. Next out, she's coming over here, making her Gulfstream Park Turf debut, taking the blinkers off. She's got some early speed. I don't know if she has the stamina for the kind of distance races that she's been running, but I think at this 5 furlongs, it might hit her right between the eyes.
Well, she's certainly in good hands with trainer Patrick Biancone. That's the 8th race to start the late pick 3. Let's look at the 9th race now. First half of the late daily double, 1 mile over the main track, $6,250 claimers set to go postward. A lot of these horses take turns running against each other and take turns beating each other in here. That always makes for a very competitive betting race because you don't know who's going to beat who here today.
Yeah, a lot of glaring question marks in this race. I landed on the number 7, Liberty Lunch from the David Fox barn, who's dropping in class. Last ran against 12-5 beaten claimers last time out, beaten about 19 lengths. 2 back in the slop, 1 against 12-5 non-winners of 2. So she's going to try the 62.50 today. She's another one that goes back and forth. She's due for a good race today. She's got that good race, bad race angle going on. Her most recent win was on a sloppy track, though. So does she perform to the same level on the fast track? Her last win prior to that was the Gulfstream in March. She won by 2 3/4 lengths on the fast track. So she had what a couple other horses in here didn't, was a win on a fast track, and I think with that dropping class.
Yeah, if you're Tyler Gaffalione and you look at this race anywhere close to the way I did, you have to send this horse from the outside.
Yeah.
Speed is your weapon of choice, and the cast behind you have proven that they take turns beating each other, but they haven't beat you yet. So Liberty Lunch, definitely a horse with a huge advantage in race number 9.
Absolutely. Then I also used the number 6, My Song Venezuelan, with Jaramillo aboard. This was one that has 2 recent wins. Both of those were on good tracks, so tracks with moisture in it. Didn't have the fast track win. One last time out, having to go wide and drifting a bit, so we'll see if able to actually stay straight today.
Took a ton of money last time out. I would expect she'd take a lot of money here today, just based on her good run last time out.
Yeah, and then I rounded it out with the number 4, Starship Galaxy, who's dropping in class as well. 2 back in a bit of a key race, finished behind 3 next out winners. Not 2 great performances the last 2, but moves back over from the turf to the dirt.
Kicking In is another horse that'll take some play in here for trainer Gary Jackson. Takes a drop in class and comes off the grass. Semi Camacho has the call. Those are the key contenders in race number 9. We'll look now to race number 10 on the program. $10,000 claimers or older horses which have not won 3. So this will be an interesting condition-wise. Number 1, Gelfenstein, being an older horse, he is eligible for non-winners to 3. We're going 7.5 furlongs over the turf course. Subbing for Ron Nicoletti, I'll pick his replay up here. He wanted to show the race from Gelfenstein. Jockey Misael Jaramillo has the call on him today. It was his last race. He did a lot right that last time out. Look at those fractions, 22 and 2, 44 and 3, and had something in reserve. The horse who was 3rd that day, this is not information that's in racing form. Britannia's Moat aired in the finale yesterday against a similar cast. So Gelfenstein beat a good field. Can he do it again? And what happens if he goes 109 and 1 to 3/4? Will there be any in the tank?
Well, on top of Britannia's Moat, there were also 3 other next out winners in that field behind him. So really coming out of a strong race, he performed really well with those fast fractions. He's probably going to show speed from the rail, especially today. I think that he's able to repeat that performance. One of the good things that I think about Jockey Misael Jaramillo, one of the smart things that I think he does is he does keep something in the tank for the stretch as they get to the wire. He did that with Gelfenstein last time out, and I'm thinking he can do it again.
He's got the rail draw too, so all indications are he'll be on the engine in the finale. The number 11 horse, Indian Naughty, is interesting enough to make Acacia's pick. Second selection in here. This horse is in the right spot today, but it begs the question, why tackle older horses? I mean, a wide open variety like he did the last time out. He's eligible for non-3. He ran well against a veteran in 2 Jacks Wild. That was against Open Company, so this is a hidden drop in class.
Finished second last time out after dropping from $25,000 optional claimers over to the 10 last time out, as you mentioned, taking a little bit of a drop today, but was only beaten half a length last time out with Tyler Gaffleone. He's going to stay aboard today. That was also the mile and a 16th. His last 2 starts on the turf were a mile and a 16th, so he's going to drop in distance as well. So I had some question marks about him, and he's got the outside post to deal with as well, but I thought he was intriguing enough to throw him on there.
Absolutely. His last race points him out as a contender. The question is, can you get that last race here this afternoon? The number 9 horse, Starship Rocky, is always charging hard from the back. Could get a slice of this in the finale.
And he's got Luca Panici on board, who's been on fire lately. He's been riding in really good form. This one finished third at this level and distance last time out, beaten just by 2 lengths.
Well, that's a look at today's Friday program. We're 30 minutes away from post time. Acacia, we nailed it on the money time-wise. 30 minutes away from post time.
That deserves a high five.
I can tell you why it happened. There's no doubt the reason it happened is, as you saw throughout the afternoon, in the pitch hitting role that I was in here today, I didn't have any picks. So when you keep my word count low, you can get done on time.
Don't forget, you have to try and beat the expert today. You only have about 30 more minutes to get your picks in. 10 races today. Mine are in, so make sure you get your last-minute homework in. Gulfstreampark.com to enter for Beat the Expert.
Stay tuned. Program changes in a moment.